We are Muskegon County at Work, spotlighting workers of local governments throughout our county, revealing what it takes to make our communities comfortable and safe. Hello, everybody. DJ Hilson, your host here of Muskegon County Municipalities at Work, and we're here yet for another segment, digging deep into the areas of municipal and county government that you may know exists, but not necessarily know the inner workings of that particular department or what they do. Certainly, this is an opportunity to meet the friendly faces of the folks that work in government, but also understand the jobs and tasks that they do. I'm honored today to interview somebody I've known for quite some time, as a matter of fact, the current chief of the city of Muskegon Heights, Chief Maurice Sain.
Hey, happy to be here.
Awesome. I mean, I almost said Mo Sain because that's kind of how I know you, but we'll go with the official name, Maurice Sain. I always like to start off with my guests. Give us a little background about yourself. Where you came from. Sort of the biography of your career, if you will. Okay.
Well, I'm Maurice Sain. I was graduated from Muskegon Heights High School in 1994. Left high school, went to Grand Rapids Community College, played a year of football there. Came back home, played basketball at Muskegon Community College. Had to take a class in the springtime, got into a police science lab class, and that kind of sparked my interest into law enforcement. I went and worked security at the Muskegon Heights Middle School for a year, and then after that, I was right into the police academy at 23 years old and been working for Muskegon Heights Police Department ever since.
So let's talk a little bit about the different positions in the police department. Because I think people probably visibly see patrol.
Yes.
And maybe, depending on the circumstance, maybe the plainclothes detective bureau. But let's talk a little bit about the different levels.
For our department, we had, when I started working, we had officers assigned to East Park Manor, which is a housing project in the city of Muskegon Heights. I was able to have that opportunity of working there on 4 different occasions. And we also had the school resource officer at Muskegon Heights Public Schools at the time. And I was able to work that assignment as well. We also have members of the police department on the ERT team. And like you said before, we have the detective bureau.
Now, within the department itself, there is a bit of a command structure. And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, over the years, we've had 2 lieutenants, 4 sergeants. Once Lieutenant Gill got promoted to chief, that position didn't get refilled. And then over some more years, we lost a sergeant in the detective bureau because of the financial cuts we had to go through at one point. So now I'm tasked with trying to reestablish the command structure. So we do have a sergeant and detectives back this year. And we also have a lieutenant position open for this year.
And what's the importance of having those? I mean, it's more than just a title, right? I mean, what's the importance of having that level of command?
It's checks and balances. And as you know, we want to be a department that's as transparent as possible. So when you have the checks and balances in place, it helps your department run more effectively and more efficiently. So just being able to have those positions and being able to have a second in command or somebody that I can lean on and have more eyes, making sure patrol and detectives are doing the job that we expect them to do.
Really important. Obviously, typically, when you get to that level of sergeant, lieutenant, you've got some years under your belt.
In some cases, our department, again, we've kind of been, I would say, like a training ground for other departments. So you come in, you work for us in the city of Muskegon Heights, you get to experience all aspects of law enforcement. So with that being said, our officers become more attractive to other departments that can pay more money. So we at a stage now where we're really, really young with patrol officers and training those to be our next leaders in the department. You might get a sergeant that's 3 years on or 4 years on, but those are the people that rise to the top.
You mentioned school resource officer, and I think you still have one. Is that
yes?
Correct? All right. I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of that. There was a period of time where that position for lack of a better way to describe it, was somewhat controversial. I'm not just talking Muskegon, it's nationwide,
yes.
right? But I think schools are now getting back to having school resource officers in the schools. Why is that important?
The one major aspect, I think, when you look at nationally all the incidents that's happened in the school, to have somebody already there trained in how to respond to those incidents is very important. The other piece of it that is just important to me is relationship building. When you have young kids that's going to become young adults and citizens, just to have that relationship building in a positive manner with the police officers help us navigate through the community better when you have those relationships already established.
Well, in as you indicated in the beginning, you are a product, if you will, of Muskegon Heights.
Yes.
And how has that played in some of the successes that you've seen over your career?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, actually. You have good relationships that you build, and you have bad relationships that you have because you've been a part of this community your whole life. So you have some people who will just look at you from, like you said, Sain. And then you have other people to understand that you've progressed in your career and now it's chief. So if you come to my department now, my secretaries hate this. They hate when somebody comes to the office and say, "Can I speak to Sain?" They're like, "Who is that?" But we all know who it is, but they just want that level of respect when you come to the police department to acknowledge the position that I have.
Do you think it puts a little bit more pressure on you, obviously having grown up and been a part of Muskegon Heights community in some respects, or does it provide a sort of a level of, like you said, more respect because you're from the community?
Both. And the reason why I say both, I think from the pressure point, if I fail, then the next person coming up through the community probably won't get the opportunity to lead in the way that I'm leading. So that's the pressure to make sure that I'm halfway successful in the job. And that's why I'm fortunate to have people like you who, if something I don't understand, I'll call you, I'll call the sheriff, I'll call Tim Kozo, people that I know that have more years in this field than I do. So just being able to rely on people and establish relationships, and like you said before, those collaborations allow me to be successful in what I'm doing. And then also those relationships, just being able to see a lot of the older generation. When I see them in the store and they, "Hey, Chief, I'm so glad to have you as the chief of the police department." Those are the good feelings, just to have the older community realizing the accomplishments that I've made.
Yeah, you have any old teachers approach you at all and say, "Gosh, I remember when you threw spitballs in my classroom"?
Definitely. Mr. Glover is one of the teachers that sent me a nice written letter when I got the job, and also another math teacher that sent me actually a flower that says not just a cop but our cop. So it's nice.
That's nice.
Yes,
that's
is.
Real nice. That's real nice. So let's spin off a little bit on the idea of collaboration and cooperation. Certainly, you've been around the law enforcement community here in Muskegon for some time,
yes,
at various levels, and now running the department. How would you describe for folks that are watching this I'll say the spirit of cooperation and collaboration amongst the law enforcement community here in Muskegon County?
I would say that when I started and where we are today is like night and day. I think right now the collaboration between Muskegon County is just outstanding. Being able to work with different police chiefs, different departments, the sheriff's office, whenever we have a major task in any community in Muskegon County, we come together and try to figure out how we can handle that situation, and that's a beautiful thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we see each other at least once a month at our monthly cops board meeting.
Correct.
And I would say that in that venue for that hour and a half that we spend together, there's really I've never experienced any yelling and screaming at one another, right? I mean,
that's correct. I haven't either, and that's the beauty. I think we all get along. I think we all care about one another's success and each other's community. So, and if you live in Muskegon, you know that at some point we all intertwine with each other. So again, one person's issue or one community issue will eventually become everybody's issue. So we try to tackle them as a team.
Let's talk a little bit about maybe some stuff that folks might not be aware of. I mean, obviously, the police department doesn't run for free.
Correct.
I mean, you have to pay people,
yes,
including yourself. Describe for us that process. I mean, when it comes time to working on the department's budget, how does that work?
Well, it's funny you asked that question, DJ. I'm going on my third city manager. And I think each city manager that I had, that process has been different. So learning what their expectations are and also dealing with the seven council people that I have. In our last budget, we were budgeted for 15 patrol officers. So just being able to make sure we got those bodies and being able to fill those positions, but not only fill them, being able to retain them for year after year after year. So right now, our police department is probably at the healthiest point it's been in a long time, and that's due to the funding that we were able to get from council and the city manager.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen overnight, right?
Definitely not.
And as you kind of look at, department expenses, are the priorities the patrol? I mean, do you have to sort of divide and conquer, or where do you set your priorities?
In my opinion, patrol is always the priority. That's the backbone of any department. We're able to do what we do because we have a strong patrol department. Detectives and things of that nature. We have assistance with the task force that can help out in some different areas, but patrol by far is the most important piece of our department.
What have you found in the newer officers coming in from the academy that's different than when you came out of the academy?
The new officers want to come in and get first shift right away.
They want to pay their dues?
They don't want to pay their dues, and that was something unheard of. And they come in with an opinion. And that was something that you didn't do when you first came into a department. You kind of came in, you roll with your FTO person, and you listen and you learn. Now they want to come in and tell how they think things should be. So that's challenging, just dealing with the new younger group of officers, but at the end of the day, the job is the job, and we have to make sure they're prepared and able to go out and do the job to the best of their abilities.
What sort of training practices do you have in place to help the new crop as they come in and start to learn, go from books to actual real life?
So we have a field training operation where when you get out the academy, you're assigned to a field training officer. And you ride with that person for however long it takes. So in that process, you start off by just riding and observing, and then you start doing the job, and then the field training officers just observe you do the job. And then once we feel like you've gotten better with that, you'll switch to a different one, and then you'll switch to a different one. You might switch to night shift and experience night shift for a while, and then you come back to your original one. And then if has satisfactory marks, then you'll get cut loose on your own. So it's a lengthy process.
Well, I mean, that's kind of critically important, right? Because again, when you go from book learning to training, and then now you're in a patrol car, and now it's not a fellow officer who's playing the part of, witness or suspect. It's a real witness. It's a real suspect.
Yes.
Totally different.
Totally different. And a lot of times I think with these kids that's able to work an iPad at 2 and 3 years old, to me, sometimes I think they rely too much on the MCTs and not necessarily jotting down information. Especially in our community, you have phone numbers and addresses that change all the time. You can't just rely on what's in the system already. You need to update that information constantly. So that's some things we kind of pushing on our new officers coming in the door.
Have you found as this new crop comes through, I mean, like you said, this generation coming through, they've grown up with electronics, a screen of some kind, right? They were dealing with cell phones even before we knew cell phones would ever be a thing. How have you found, or maybe have you found any challenges as it relates to interpersonal skills? And in other words, being able to talk to somebody.
Yeah, even with my own kids, they so locked in on the tablet or the phone that they have in their hand, and texting and not just communicating. So having that one-on-one when I have to bring somebody into my office to have that communication with them, it's a difficult conversation because they're not really used to having verbal conversations with people face to face. So that's been challenging. But, I'm a Christian guy, and the Bible speaks about the newer generation being weaker but wiser. And they're definitely a lot smarter, but I don't think they're as strong mentally as we were coming up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and I'm sure this is something that yourself and other agencies are still trying to grapple and address. I mean, out on the streets, we're not texting with each other when it comes time to taking a statement.
Exactly.
Right?
You got to have some communication skills, and they need to be on par with what the situation is that you're dealing with. In our case, sometimes your communication can talk a situation down where you don't have to necessarily go hands-on or put handcuffs on a person if you're able to communicate and talk that person down. So having great communication skills would definitely have a great impact on your career in law enforcement.
I know this is true not only in Muskegon County but across the nation. The ability or inability to get people to appreciate law enforcement as a career. You are a career law enforcement guy.
Yes.
Why is this something that people should aspire to?
Because you get to help people. I think that I look at law enforcement as being called to the ministry. I don't think you can just wake up and say, I want to be a police officer. This is a career that you have to be called to, or you won't last, because you deal with death and trauma, and you have to be able to process all of that in this job. And I don't believe if you're not called to this profession, you won't be able to handle those correctly.
But is it a rewarding profession?
Definitely. I mean, I just use one of my examples. I had an older female lady that had dementia, and she couldn't remember where she lived, no contact information, and I rode her around for at least 3 hours before I figured out who her people was. And just seeing how grateful they was, those are the rewarding things that you get in this profession.
You take the thank yous when you get them, right?
Yes, sir.
So, talk about, this, obviously from the time you started until today, the role of police officers has changed.
Definitely.
And, at least from an outsider's perspective looking in, it seems as though the community is asking more of our police officers. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yes, you definitely have to wear a lot of hats, and a lot of those hats has absolutely nothing to do with law enforcement. So you have to be a social worker sometimes. You have to be a mental health person sometimes, and those are things that the skill sets that you pick up along the way. And just building relationships. Building relationships with the people in your community will go a long way. If you build those relationships up, get out your car, make contact with people when you don't have to. Deal with people when it's not a call, when it's not something that you're responding to. Just, hey, Ms. Johnson, how you doing? Seeing you at the gas station, just coming over to say hi. Those kind of things is what make the job easier for police officers.
Now, you mentioned social worker, and you have something unique that's only in a couple of departments here in Muskegon County, but you have a social worker that actually works in Muskegon Heights Police Department.
Yes, that's one thing that I'm proud of. Our department was one of the first departments to get a clinician inside of the department. Her name is Angela Smith. She's a great addition to our police department. Just having that resource there to let people know what resources are available for you when you have in situations mentally or life situations where you might need assistance on bills, or you're homeless and you need some place to go. She has all that information on where to direct people and how to get those resources.
A lot of what's happened over the last couple of years has been around the mental health science, I'll say, for lack of a better way to describe it. And certainly, and again, given your years of experience, how law enforcement has dealt with those going through a mental health crisis has changed. And now I think we're changing for the better, right?
Yes.
So describe it, and I know the social worker does help along those lines too, but describe a little bit of what Muskegon County has been doing over the last several years to help law enforcement officials understand, appreciate, and deal with those that are dealing with mental health situations.
Well, I think every department now are getting their officers trained in CIT, which is a way of us to learn how to deal with mental health situations. In the past, it was just if they had to go to jail, take them to jail, but that doesn't necessarily help the problem. And I remember when I first started, we used to have a facility that we could take people to, but that, because of funding, doesn't exist anymore. So just getting the proper training to know how to deal with a person that's having a mental episode and knowing who to call, having numbers to call. We have a team that'll come out and help address the issue. As soon as you call, they come out and help. So just having that resource is huge for Muskegon County, and just getting the training that it takes to be able to identify whether somebody is having a mental episode or something else related to drugs maybe. So just being able to identify the two and getting the people the right help and not just sending them to the county jail for the sheriff to have that headache.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think that this new wave of training and thinking has definitely saved citizens' lives, but also have saved officers' lives as a result.
Yes, and in that training, they do a good job with going over different scenarios, putting officers in real live situations to see how they would respond and how they will handle those intense situations with people that's having mental illness breakdowns.
Now, I know that you're not an elected position, but you do answer to folks. What are you, outside of the law enforcement, what are you doing in the community just to show that community presence? I attend several meetings. We have an organization called GUNS. It's Gaining Unity Through Nonviolent Solutions. There we meet every month and try to talk about how we can reduce the gun violence throughout our community. I was doing, at one point at the US Cafe when it was located in the city of Muskegon Heights, I was doing my weekly coffee with a cop conversation where you can come in on Wednesdays and talk about whatever issues you were having throughout the community. Had invited different people throughout the community come in and also help with that. And that was really successful, but they end up moving the restaurant downtown. So I don't know why, but they're supposed to be back now. So we are having conversations about bringing that back. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. That was a good opportunity for me to meet people and bring different resources to our community. Obviously, you've lived within the community, almost your entire life. And I know, again, when it comes to recruitment and retention, there's been, for some time, there's been this walk away from requiring, law enforcement officers to live in the community that they serve.
Yes.
I'm going to ask your opinion on that. Do you feel that is a good thing, a bad thing, or are you indifferent on it?
I honestly think it hurt the community. I think when you have people who work in your community, live in your community, they take a different prideful way of doing the job. Not to say that the people that don't live in the community don't have pride in their job, but when it's home, you tend to look at it a little differently. So I was around when that state law changed, and I seen the people exodus fast. So being the third Sain on the police department, probably my uncle Lotris was there probably in the early 70s. To still have a Sain on the department in 2025 is a testament to
kind of a big deal.
Yes, it is.
I mean, there's a lot of legacy there.
A lot of legacy. Even going back to my grandfather, he, and I don't know if I ever told you this story. My grandfather was really good friends with Sheriff Carter, and he wanted to show the process of the drugs being sold, caught, going to court, and everything. So they did this big act of him being busted for drugs, going to court, going through that process, and he had a TV show, and he recorded the whole process and showed it. But at the time, everybody thought he actually got busted for drugs. So that was pretty funny.
Well, as folks are watching this, and I'll go back, kind of offshoot on a previous question I gave you. What do they need? What do they need to do in order to pursue a career in law enforcement? Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think that departments are still able to access state monies, in order to sponsor people. So talk a little bit about why that's important and how people can get involved.
Yep. Currently, we have 2 people in the academy right now. So if you're interested in getting into law enforcement, you have to first pass the MCO's reading and writing test and also the physical agility exam. And then once you get that passed, you have to come and apply for whatever department that you want to apply to. And then they can sponsor you through a police academy.
And what does that sponsorship entail from a money standpoint?
Different departments is different. For us, we pay cadets to go to the academy. They get to use one of our cruisers to get back and forth to the police academy. So there's no gas cost to them. If they have to stay up there due to the weather, we'll take care of that. But just coming in, making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do up there, abiding by the rules and regulations of the police department. Also, the academy have their set of rules and regulations that you got to abide by. And if you break either one of those, you can be dismissed from the academy.
So ultimately, there's a lot of really nice incentives to get into law enforcement as a career.
Definitely. And you have people like Max McKee who put out a bonus that if you work for the city of Muskegon or the city of Muskegon Heights, he was helping pay for your mortgage if you bought a house within either one of those 2 communities. So that was something that was special that he added on as a deal.
I mean, it's hard not to, answer that call and come into law enforcement. One of my I always say last question, but I'm a lawyer, so last question never means last question. But our folks got to know your best basketball performance.
Best basketball performance.
You can go back to high school if you want.
I would actually say it was probably at Muskegon Community College. We was playing Delta College, and my coach kept talking about how good the post player was at that particular school. And I think I had like 25 points and 16 rebounds against him. So,
I mean, listen, you do look. I know that you are very conscious about staying healthy, working out. I mean, you look like you could post up right now if you wanted to.
Knees won't allow it, but I probably could.
Well, Chief, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do.
Me.
You're welcome. Thank you for everything you do for the community, for our law enforcement group. You are. It's been a lot of fun working with you at various levels of both of our careers.
Yes.
And I really appreciate everything that you bring to the table. So thank you for that.
Yep. And I thank you for always being like a big brother to me. Any questions I have, you always pick up the phone for me. So I really appreciate that.
That's kind of you. I'm not sure who's older at this table.
You are.
Well, thanks, Chief. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that ends our segment for today. Again, please continue to look at our episodes and delve into the various different levels of municipal government. And today you got to learn a lot about the behind the scenes, if you will, of law enforcement at a city level. Until the next time, have a great day. And certainly this program is not as successful as it is without the ingenuity of one Mike Vogus.